Meru and A Course in Miracles intersect in a surprisingly rich way because both are deeply concerned with the nature of striving, identity, fear, purpose, and what remains when the self confronts its limits. On the surface, Meru is about elite climbing, the attempt to summit one of the most dangerous peaks in the Himalayas. But underneath, it becomes a meditation on obsession, transcendence, ego, mortality, devotion, and the strange human hunger to go beyond perceived limitation. ACIM would immediately ask, what is the climb for? Not morally, not judgmentally, but inwardly. Because outwardly identical actions can arise from completely different mindsets: proving worth, escaping emptiness, seeking transcendence, devotion to beauty, addiction to intensity, joining, self-destruction, awakening. The mountain itself becomes symbolic of projection. For the ego, mountains often represent conquest. I overcame, I achieved, I became extraordinary. But Meru complicates that narrative. The mountain repeatedly dismantles certainty and exposes vulnerability. Nature is not impressed by self-image. That is profoundly ACIM. The ego depends on control and self-definition. Extreme situations strip away those narratives quickly. On the mountain, social masks collapse. What remains is raw mind, fear, trust, resentment, clarity, compulsion, love, survival. One of the film's strongest ACIM themes is the confrontation with death. ACIM teaches that fear of death is the ego's core engine. Much human behavior is organized around avoiding awareness of fragility and impermanence. In Meru, death is no longer abstract philosophy. It is immediate and intimate. The climbers are forced into direct relationship with uncertainty. That exposure can either harden ego identity or soften it. Conrad Anker especially carries an ACM-like dimension after surviving earlier trauma and loss. There's a humility and tenderness mixed into his drive. He is not simply chasing adrenaline, he is wrestling with meaning itself. Jimmy Chin's storyline is also powerful spiritually. After his severe accident, there's a deep existential tension. Who am I if I cannot perform? What remains when the body fails? What is identity without mastery? ACM constantly dismantles identification with performance and body-based self-worth. The ego says, I am what I accomplish. But accidents, aging, illness, and failure expose how unstable that identity really is. The film also beautifully captures interdependence. Despite the mythology of heroic individualism, survival depends on trust, relationship, cooperation, and vulnerability. The climbers literally hold one another's lives. ACIM repeatedly points toward joining as salvation from the isolated self-concept. No one truly climbs alone psychologically, even if culturally we romanticize solitary achievement. Another deep ACM parallel: the summit does not permanently resolve the human condition. This is important. The ego always imagines fulfillment exists just beyond the next achievement. The summit, the enlightenment, the recognition, the relationship, the breakthrough. But Meru subtly shows that even profound triumph remains temporary in form. The mountain cannot permanently answer identity. ACM would say no external accomplishment can complete the separated self because the separated self itself is the misunderstanding. Yet the film does not reduce the climb to meaningless ego either. That's too simplistic. There are moments in Meru that feel almost sacred: beauty, stillness, presence, self-forgetting, silence, communion with vastness. ACIM would likely distinguish between egoic striving and holy purpose within the same activity. The form is not the issue. The mind underneath the form matters. Climbing can be conquest, or prayer, or escape, or joining, or addiction, or surrender. Sometimes all at once. There's also an important caution here for spiritual seekers. The ego can turn transcendence itself into achievement. I reached higher, I went beyond ordinary people, I touched the absolute. Extreme experiences can inflate specialness as easily as dissolve it. The film partially avoids this trap because it includes failure, terror, exhaustion, injury, and emotional cost. The mountain keeps humbling everyone, and humility is central in ACIM. Not humiliation, but the release of self-magnification. Perhaps the deepest ACIM connection is this: the climbers keep approaching a vastness that makes the separate self feel very small. The ego interprets that as either terror or glory. But beneath both may be something quieter. A recognition that life is not ultimately organized around personal control, and that peace may emerge less from conquering the mountain than from surrendering the illusion that the isolated self was ever the center of reality to begin with.